Hello everyone, and welcome to part 2 of my Manfred Mann vinyl collection. Now in today's video I'll be showing you my LPs for both Manfred Mann and Paul Jones's solo material. However, unlike part 1 in which I showed my singles and DPs, I'm not going to be splitting it up so that it's all of Manfred Mann and then all of Paul Jones. I'm just going to mingle the two together so that everything's in perfect chronological order, or at least by year anyway. So, I'll start off by showing Manfred Mann's debut album in the UK, known as The Five Faces of Manfred Mann, and this is different to the US album called The Five Faces of Manfred Mann. I believe there's one with the same title, and here it is. Although it's apparently been released in mono and stereo in the 60s, I've never actually seen a stereo copy, so it must be extremely rare. And there's the back. And here's the track listing. There's not really any major singles on this album, just B-sides and new material, but it's still a pretty good album, I think, and it includes one of my favourite Manfred Mann songs, It's Gonna Work Out Fine, which you can hear Bruce Springsteen doing a version of actually in the 70s. And this is on the HMV label, or His Master's Voice. And here is the label. Got the nice red His Master's Voice text. And their first album came out in 1964. And their side 2. So a pretty good debut album. And here is their second album called Man-Made. And there's the back. It's got a little mini bio for each member of the band. And interestingly, someone's actually written the members at the bottom there. Made by Garvey and Lofthouse, as was their debut album. And this came out in October '65. And there's the tracks. I think I ever so slightly prefer this album to the debut one, but they're both pretty good. And my favourite track on here is probably side 2 track 4, You Don't Know Me, which I believe is a cover of a Ray Charles song, and I think it's absolutely outstanding. They also do a very, very good version of High Lily, High Low, which although it wasn't a single, I think is absolutely fantastic as well. So it's a good album, the second album, and this is actually the first Manfred Mann album I heard. And there's the HMV label for this album. Both sides of it. And I've also got a 70s reissue of this album, and this is on EMI Regal, or the Starline series. And the back cover is a lot more basic, it just advertises other albums, but the track listing's the same. And importantly, this is in stereo. You can actually get an original stereo copy as well, but it was just a lot easier to track down a reissue in stereo. And this came out in November 1969. So it came out exactly 4 years and 1 month after the original. So made by Garvey and Lofthouse, the sleeves. And it's got a Music for Pleasure in the sleeve. I don't know if that's right, but I mean, it's exactly the same type of thing. And this comes on the blue Starline label here. I'll often play this copy just so I don't have to play my original copy. There we go. Now the next album is something called Man-Made Hits, and this was the very first British compilation album for Manfred Mann. And it's got material from 1963 to 1966, and I'll show you the back. There's a track listing first of all. It's actually got an exclusive track on here, or at least I believe it's an exclusive track. Side 1, track 5, Spirit Feel, I think is only on this album, and it's just an instrumental, but it's nice. And it's actually a very, very good compilation album. I frequently listen to this one. It's really good. And there's the back picture of Paul Jones there. And there's the label. The fact that it specifies on the back of the cover that this is Manfred Mann with Paul Jones, I assume it's just something to do with the fact that it was around this time, or September 1966 when this album came out, that Paul Jones left the band to pursue his solo career. So it might just be specifying that to improve sales, because he released his first single, High Time, in late 66, which got to number 3 in the charts. And to be honest, Paul Jones leaving is probably one of the reasons that this album came out in the first place. And here we have the Manfred Mann album called As Is, which came out at the end of 1966, and it's the first one to feature Mike Darbo on lead vocals. Now there are 2 different versions of this cover which came out at the same time, and this one's known as the alcove cover, and I'll show you the other version in a few moments. But this is by far the most common version, known as the alcove cover, and it's got the track listing on the front there. And this one features the single Just Like a Woman, which got to number 10 in late 66. But it's a very good album. It's actually one of my favourite Manfred Mann albums. And if you turn the cover upside down, you can see the new lead singer Mike Darbo there. And this was not on the HMV label, this was on the Fontana label. And you can see a bigger version of the track listing on the back, as well as right up there. Just basically reviews the songs on the album and talks a bit about the members. And there's the black label for Fontana. And this is 1966. I would say about 3/4 of the songs on here are very, very good. Features some good instrumentals actually, including a good one of Autumn Leaves. And here we have a stereo version of the same album. So it's exactly the same, except I'll just show you the back. It's ST rather than just T, that means this is stereo. And the back's actually in nicer condition than the mono version. And I'll show you the label. Just the same as the mono version, except of course it has a stereo designation over here on the right. And here we have the second version of the As Is cover, released at exactly the same time in 1966. And this is known as the Locomotive cover. And that's obviously because it's got a train on it. And I really like this cover as well. Although this version's a lot more difficult to find. In the 2 and a bit years I've been collecting Manfred Manns, I've only seen 3 copies, including this one. And I was quite lucky to get this for a pretty good price actually. And there's the track listing in the bottom left corner. And the back of the sleeve is actually identical to that of the alcove version. And this is mono, by the way. I don't know if you can get a stereo copy of the Locomotive cover as well, but this one's a mono. And the record's just the same as the Locomotive version as well. The record doesn't change, it's just the front of the cover that's different. And next up we've got a Manfred Mann album that came out on HMV actually, except this is a compilation album of sorts. It's called Soul of Man, and this is a compilation of their instrumental tracks. So it's all instrumentals here, and I'm just going to say I love the cover of the Burning Skull. If you've ever seen the James Bond film Live and Let Die, and you watch the opening credits, which has the Paul McCartney song Live and Let Die playing alongside it, of course, there's a bit with a burning skull, and this always reminds me of those Live and Let Die opening credits. But it does say down there instrumentals. And then there's the back, which actually advertises the first 2 albums and man-made hits. So you can see the track listing there. It's got tracks from EPs and singles and B-sides as well as albums, of course. And it's got a few exclusive tracks, I believe. Things like God Rest Ye Merry Gentlemen and Tango Tango, I believe, are exclusive to this album. But it's quite a nice compilation if you like the instrumental stuff. And this came out in January 1967. And there's the HMV label for it, and this is in mono. And now we interrupt the Manfred Mann albums to bring you Paul Jones's debut solo album, known as My Way. And that's nothing to do with the Frank Sinatra song My Way, as I first assumed it to be. It's a completely different song. So I'll show you the mono version first. So it's got Paul Jones there on the front, of course, and then there's the back, and there's the track listing. And it includes his hit single High Time on side 2, and interestingly on side 2 track 3 it's got a song called She Needs Company, which also appeared on a Manfred Mann EP, the Machines EP. However, this is actually a re-recorded version of that song, and it's a bit slower than the Manfred Mann version, but it's still very, very good. And although the album's absolutely nothing groundbreaking, you know, it's just an easy listening pop album, it's a pretty good album though. I quite like it. And this is on HMV. And there's the label, just like the Manfred Mann albums. I should have actually shown Soul of Man after this album, because My Way came out in December 66. But oh well, it's close enough. And anyway, here's the stereo version of My Way, which is just the same, but just with a stereo designation at the top, and it'll have a stereo designation on the label as well. Sounds nice in stereo though, this album. And here we have another Manfred Mann album with Mike Darbo. And to be honest, this album, I don't know if you can class it as like a studio album or a compilation really, because to be honest it is a compilation, but this was released on the Fontana Special label, so it's sort of like a budget release. And this has a lot of their material which I'm not a huge fan of, just when they went through that little period of producing some really weird stuff. And there's the tracks, there's 10 songs in total. To be honest, I would say the best songs on here are Sweet Pea, More Than After the Party, which is from As Is actually. So it's interesting that one's on here. I'm not really sure why. Feeling So Good, and some of the instrumentals on here are okay. Like they do a good version of Wild Thing, stuff like that. And this is in stereo, I believe, and it's on a light blue Fontana label with a big stereo designation. From 1967 here. And you'll notice that I've got another copy of this album here, and literally the only difference is, I'll just quickly go back to the previous copy. This version has flipbacks, and this version doesn't. So you can see there, the one here has flipback sleeves, and this one doesn't have flipback sleeves. So I don't know if that was just slightly later on in the press and run or whatever, but that's the only difference between the two labels, are just the same. And now we go back to Paul Jones's solo material, and this album here is the epitome of the substandard material Paul Jones was getting in the late 60s. Just the front cover of this album, 50% makes me laugh, and the other 50% absolutely creeps the heck out of me. I mean, that is a scary cover. It's like nightmare fuel on an album cover. But anyway, it's Love Me, Love My Friends. Let's take a look at the track listing. You've got a caricature on the back there, which may or may not... Okay, no, it was by Gerald Scarfe, not Paul Jones. But anyway, there's the track listing. So it's got some bizarre tracks, and most songs include a lady's name. Not all of them. But anyway, it includes a cover of Larry Williams' Boney Maroney, and a very good cover it is, actually. And it's got some other good tracks. The first track's very good, Love Me. I also like, although it's very much a novelty track, as are most of the songs on here, I like his version of Along Came Jones, which I've heard being done by several other people, including people like the Righteous Brothers. But it's complete novelty, but it's just a laugh at the end of the day. And then there's stuff like Tarzan, etc., where he just lists off loads of people who I think were supposed to have influenced him and that. But it's just songs just like, I want to thank Tarzan and a couple of older women and loads of other people. So if you've heard the album, you'll know what I mean. But this is just some of the more eccentric songs that he did during his solo career. And still on HMV at this point in 1967. And here is the soundtrack to the film Privilege, in which Paul Jones starred. And I've got the film here on Blu-ray. That's it there, Privilege. It's definitely quite an arty film, I would say. And there's the back. You can pause the video if you'd like to have a proper read of it. Of course, you can always just Google it. And there's the inside, just in case you want to see. It's got the DVD and it's got the Blu-ray. And anyway, this is the soundtrack to it. There's the back, with a few pictures from the film. And there's the track listing. I would say that, but by far the two best songs on here are Privilege and I've Been a Bad Bad Boy. But there are a couple of other good tracks. Free Me's okay. And here's the HMV label for it. And now back to Manfred Mann, who have also got a soundtrack to a film, and that film is called Up the Junction, and that stars Dennis Waterman. Now, I haven't actually seen the film, so I can't really tell you anything about it. Although, this is the soundtrack that Manfred Mann did for the film. And the song Up the Junction was released as a single. And there's the back of the cover. And the track listing. You'll notice that a lot of songs appear several times on the album, including Up the Junction, just like reprises and different versions. And there's the label again. What's interesting is that literally every single song on this album was written by either Mike Hugg and Manfred Mann, apart from one song which is credited to Mike Hugg and two other people. But it's interesting that the drummer wrote a lot of the material around this time. And here we have the stereo version of Up the Junction, which will be just the same apart from the stereo designation. I think Up the Junction was actually reissued a year or two later with a slightly different cover, but I haven't got that. And here we have Mighty Garvey, which was released in 1968, and this is quite possibly my favourite Manfred Mann album if I had to pick one. Even though it's got some weird songs, it's got a lot of really excellent songs on this album, including the #1 hit Mighty Quinn, written by Bob Dylan. And I'll show you the back of the cover. This one hasn't got flip backs, but it's still laminated. And there's the tracks for side 1 there. It's got a lot of tracks related to Eddie Garvey, or Edward Garvey, or whatever happens to be. And they're the weird tracks, but it's got a lot of good songs on here. My favourites are It's So Easy Falling, Mighty Quinn, Big Betty, which I didn't actually realise was a song that Manfred Mann did a version of. The Vicar's Daughter's good. Each and Every Day is one of my favourites. Cuba's Town, Haha Said the Clown. More or less every song on side 2, to be honest. But yeah, really good album this. And it's on the usual black Fontana label. And Mike Darbo was doing a lot of the writing for this album alongside Mike Hugg. And here we have Paul Jones's 1969 solo album, Coming to My Music Box, which is sort of following the eccentric and weird route that his solo career took. Slightly less so than Love Me Love My Friends. And this album just features a lot of cover songs, to be honest. Some of which are good, some of which not so good. I'll give an example of one that I quite like, and that's It's Getting Better, which was released as a single, and also Aquarius. I think both of those songs are very good. And one cover song on here that I think isn't so good is his cover of Baby Now That I Found You, which was a #1 for the Foundations a few years ago. I mean, it's not like it's a bad cover. It's just like it's a song that isn't particularly suited to his voice, I don't think. And so this was September '69. This album came out, and this is a mono copy here. And this is actually on the One Box Columbia label, because they'd changed the labels by this point. So, not on HMV anymore. Now, Manfred Mann with Mike Darbo broke up, or ceased to exist, I should say, in 1969. And then later in 1969, Mike Hugg and Manfred Mann, with a few other people, formed what was known as Manfred Mann Chapter 3, which is when they went through a kind of prog rock type phase, which only lasted a couple of years, and they were on the Vertigo label. And during that time they released 2 albums, and I've got the first of those 2 albums. They're both insanely difficult to get, the second one in particular. And this is it. So I'll just take it out of its sleeve here. This is the first of the 2 albums released by Manfred Mann Chapter 3. And I believe that's supposed to be Manfred Mann and Mike Hugg on the front cover there. I really like the green and silver design. And there's the back with the other 3 members of the band. And it's got a gatefold sleeve here, which is really nice. So I'll just show you one side at a time. There's that side. And there's that side. It's got a track list in here, so I'll just show you that piece by piece. So side 1. And side 2. And after a few listens, this album is actually pretty good. One of my favourite songs on here is Sometimes from side 1. But there's a lot of good songs on here. And the song Happy Being Me was released as a single. However, that song isn't actually on this LP. I don't know if it's on if it's on the second album or not, I don't know. But anyway, that's the single that was released around this time. And it comes in the nice Vertigo in the sleeve. It's got the Vertigo label for side 1 of the record there. And I'll take it out so you can see side 2 properly. Mann chapter 3. And interestingly, at around the same time, maybe a year or two later, Paul Jones also did some kind of prog rock type stuff on the Vertigo label, and he released one album known as Crucifix in a Horseshoe, and it's about as bizarre as the title suggests, but it's actually, again after a few listens, pretty good in a weird way. And here it is. This is not a particularly easy album to get either, because I would imagine the stuff on Vertigo is often a niche market and not many people would have been buying Paul Jones material at this time. So here's the gatefold sleeve. It's got all the tracks and the lyrics. I'll show you the back of the cover, just that. The continuation of Paul Jones's face. I like the Manfred chapter 3 album. It's got the Vertigo swirls on side 1, which looks really cool when you're playing the record. And on side 2 you've got the tracks. Side 1, track 1, Life After Death, is probably my favourite song on here, and that was released as a single. It's actually quite a commercial song, to be honest. And I can't remember the specifics of every single song on here, but it's actually quite a nice album, and I do enjoy listening to this LP. It's got some quite long songs on, like side 1, track 4, Construction Worker song. I think that one's quite long. But really not a bad album. I would say it's definitely better than the majority of the albums that came out within the 1960s anyway. And here we have an American copy of Crucifix in a Horseshoe. And this LP is different in that the front covers all of Paul Jones's face rather than just half of it. And also that this is not a gatefold sleeve. It's made out of cardboard as well, as the American covers usually are. It's got the track listing just displayed on the back there. And because it's not a gatefold sleeve, the lyrics are on the inner sleeve here. And the LP's on the London label. And interestingly, it calls it The Crucifix in a Horse. In fact, it's not even The Crucifix in a Horseshoe, it's The Crucifix in a Horse. So it's totally changed the album title for the label. And there we go, The Crucifix in a Horse. And here we have a Paul Jones solo. Oh yeah. And here we have a Paul Jones compilation album known as Hits and Blues. And this came out in May of 1980. And it's a compilation of 16 of his songs from his albums, singles, B-sides, etc. And it's a very good compilation actually. It's also got 1 or 2 songs which I don't think you can get anywhere else, including his version of How Sweet It Is to Be Loved By You, which is quite good. So, nice little compilation album, and it's quite a good way to get into Paul Jones' solo material, like as a place to get started. And it's on a label called One Up, which I assume is just like a budget type label. And there's the other side, side 2. And the last LP I have to show for this video is just one called The Best of Manfred Mann. This came out I think in the 70s at some point. And this is actually the LP which helped me to get into Manfred Mann. And it's all material from the Paul Jones era, up to 1966. and it's on the EMI label from the 70s there. Kind of the tan and red EMI label. Now the last thing I have to show for this video is a CD. And although it's a CD, it's actually quite important to me for a couple of reasons. I'll show you this. Now this is Live 4321. It's the Manfreds. Now as the title suggests, this is a live album. And this was recorded within the last year. And I bought this when I went to see Manfred Mann in concert last October. And it is with Paul Jones and Mike Darbo. They both were on the tour, as well as Tom McGuinness and Mike Hugg from the original band. Manfred Mann himself wasn't there, nor was Mike Vickers. Although, to be honest, I might be wrong about this, but I think Manfred Mann has to be one of the only big 60s groups to actually have all of its original members still alive, touch wood. I believe that's the case anyway. But back to what I was saying. So I saw them in concert and I bought this after the show. Now, Manfred Mann were actually signing after the show, so I was able to meet them and get their signatures here. So I've got, when it focuses, I've got Paul Jones in the top left here. Then we've got Mike Darbo, who was the other lead singer, of course. And there's Mike Hugg. There's Tom McGuinness. And the other three people were the people who were playing with Manfred Mann. And I'll see if I can get the names. Yeah, it was Rob Townsend, Marcus Cliff, and Simon Curry, and they just played the other instruments. I think it was Simon Curry, I might be wrong, played all sorts of stuff, the saxophone, lots of brass instruments, all sorts of stuff. And there's some pictures from them playing live, so you can see what it looked like now. I have to say, all the voices had held up really well over the years. And Tom McGuinness did a live version of When I'm Dead and Gone, and it sounded fantastic. And Paul Jones looked very smart, and his voice was still very, very good indeed. And it's a 2-disc set. I'll just show you each disc. So CD1 has part 1 of the concert, with those tracks on there. And CD2 has the other half of the concert. It's upside down, I've just realised. There we go. So yeah, anyway, it was really good to see Manfred Mann, and to meet them obviously was the icing on the cake. And it was quite interesting. I went to the concert with my dad, and I was speaking to Paul Jones at the end of the show, and we were telling him that we collected his vinyl, and he was quite surprised that, or to use his words, what can you still get it? And yeah, it was quite interesting to tell him about it actually. And it was a really nice man, I have to say. You know, he was totally genuine, really, really kind, happy to speak to you. And it was just a great experience overall. And it's nice that he's still out there performing as well. I noticed Mike Hugg, who was the drummer, was there, and got to briefly speak to him as well. During the show, he wasn't doing a great deal of the drumming, that they had someone else to do the majority of it. And I suppose that's just because, as with the other members, he is in his 70s by now, you know, so he probably finds it quite difficult. But it was really great that he was still there to play with the band. Anyway, that's the end of part 2 of my Manfred Mann collection video. So I really hope you enjoyed seeing these, and I hope you'll tune in for my next video, during which I'll be showing another of my favourite 60s groups. And until then, I just want to thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you all next time.